All right, so this is our very first lecture. This is our introduction to consumer psychology. We're going to get a brief overview of consumer psychology in general, and then we're going to look into research methods that are used when exploring these phenomena. And then finally we're going to end up with kind of an overview of this class. So it will be a shorter lecture this time, but an informative one. So we're going to start here with a formal definition of consumer psychology. What do we mean when we talk about consumer psychology? Those of you who've studied psych know that psychology means the study of human thought processes and behavior. So now we're looking at the behavior and processes that are involved when you select, purchase, use, and dispose of products and services. So let me repeat that. Those processes and behaviors that are involved when you select, purchase, use, and dispose of products or services. So the study of consumer psychology is still the study of thought processes and behaviors, but those focused in this area. Some of you might have taken consumer behavior or are thinking about taking it in the business school. And when this is taught from a marketing perspective, it's a different kind of perspective than psychology. So marketers do consumer research with the ultimate goal of increasing profits. And so that is going to be the bottom line of what they're teaching in class, is using marketing strategies to increase profits. Okay. Now, in psychology, this perspective is a little different. Psychologists do consumer research to explore ways to increase consumer awareness, consumer advocacy, and to help consumers make wiser decisions. And, what we're talking about here is that a lot of the thought processes that occur, and sometimes even behaviors in consumer psychology, are outside of our awareness. And when they're outside of our awareness, they are outside of our control. We can't do anything about them, right? So the idea here is to help make you a wiser consumer, making wiser decisions by bringing much of this into consciousness where you can do something about it. Okay. So we're going to be covering the good, the bad, and the ugly. So there's a lot of good in consumer psychology. I would love teaching this class because if you're like me, you have a real appreciation for very creative advertising and marketing. In fact, we're going to be looking at a number of very creative examples of guerrilla marketing throughout this class. You'll learn about that term in our very next lecture. So there's a lot of good. There are products that are very innovative, that are advertised in a really honest and straightforward manner. Purchase decisions that we make of products that increase the quality of our lives by solving problems or increasing the pleasure that we get out of life. And, so there's a lot of good in consumer psychology, but there's also bad. And some examples are when we find ourselves prompted to buy things that we don't really need or want or can't afford for reasons of which we're not always aware. Okay? And then there is the ugly. So I'm just going to give you a few examples of this. Buying as a result of deceptive, exploitative, and or covert marketing. So deceptive marketing is just what it sounds like. This is marketing which aims to manipulate others by giving false or misleading information. Exploitative marketing targets a weakness in a particular group. So for example, it might be marketing that is designed to confuse the elderly or to inspire children to manipulate their parents, be great examples of that. And then we have covert marketing, also known as stealth marketing. And this is marketing that is posing to be something it is not, with the intent that consumers don't know that it's an advertisement. Either don't know immediately or never find out. So some examples of that. We've all received these emails, right, that look like they come from a friend, actually come from a friend's email address oftentimes when those accounts are hijacked. So they're disguised as otherwise, but they're really some kind of an advertisement. Another example would be actors posing as consumers, pretending that they're consumers. And another example would be when reviews are written by somebody who's posing as a consumer, really is not, who's someone who works for the company, and posts reviews online, positive reviews of their products. And another example would be kickbacks. So claiming that this is a really good product, and when people buy it, getting a kickback from the seller. Those are all great examples of covert marketing in particular. So let's see if you can tell the difference in these. Hey, what I'm going to do is I'm going to test you, give you some examples here. You can quiz yourself and tell me which of these three they would belong in: deceptive marketing, exploitative marketing, or covert marketing. So you might want to take just a minute here, pause the video, and run over the descriptions of those till they're in your head well, and then turn your video back on. And here we go. So the first one would be infomercials. And the answer is covert marketing. The second one is false claims in a television ad. And that is deceptive marketing. Number 3, an ad that's intended to convince kids that good parents would provide them with a swimming pool. That is exploitative marketing, definitely. How about a sales emails that are disguised as otherwise? Okay, that is covert marketing, one of the examples we just talked about. Hey, it's really interesting if you look at the new Yahoo site for email, that the very first, there's an ad at the very top that is designed to look like an email. For a long time, they really got people to open those up thinking that they were opening an email. That's a great example of covert marketing. How about an ad which infers confusing information about an adult diaper product? Okay, that's exploitative. It's targeting a certain group. How about actors who pose as if they were consumers? And that is covert marketing. How about misleading information on a label? That would be deceptive. And then consumer imposter reviews. And that is covert. And then our last one, what about when you get an advertisement in the mail with no return address, and or it's hand addressed without a return address? Okay? And that is covert marketing. So if you got all those right, you're ready to move on. If not, you might want to review those descriptions again and then come back in and take that quiz.